Hey everybody, we're gonna get started on um, maybe finishing up this project here. If you watched my previous video, you will have seen me explain what this is. This will be my head unit faceplate relocation pod, or whatever you want to call it. Just another quick look at it here. So the first thing you want to do, and I've been watching several YouTube channels lately on how to do this. You got to come up with a pattern. So I used just like some construction paper, and I taped it in place, and not only taped it, but contoured it around. Got it to go where I wanted it. Put some guide marks on the paper that correspond with marks on the wood, and then there's the other piece. And then I transferred it over to a thicker piece that we're going to call pattern, like a pattern cardboard. It's thicker. This is cut out a little bit better. This is what I'll actually be using to trace and cut out the fabric, and you'll see there's a line around there. You want to give yourself seam allowance. So the dark line that's on here is where I'm going to be sewing, and you have to be careful when you're doing stuff like this. It looks like I just didn't do a neat job there, but that's actually how I need to sew this. It has to be straight here. It has to kind of make a slight curve, go straight, slight curve, go straight, gradual curve, go straight. It's got to do all that or else it's not going to fit this. I've got curves, I've got angles and curves here. It angles this way, it angles this way, it angles here, it curves around. There's a lot going on here. And that's not really 90 degrees. So there's a lot going on. I did a couple of test runs with some similar materials just to make sure I was going to be able to, make corners and stuff, and it generally came out okay. Quick and dirty stuff here, just to see that make sure it's feasible. And then the hard part is just cutting the opening out and getting the material in there. The stuff doesn't stretch very much. So I did a test piece for that too, and I only really needed to go about halfway in, and I was successful in getting it to do what I want. I had to use some trickery, had to use some little tacks down there. You probably can't see them, but some tacks in the corners to keep the corners from lifting, and even with that you can kind of see it bunches, but it still shows pretty good. So again, that was a quick and dirty. So I've got a yard of fabric over here. I don't even know what official color this is because I just ordered it by number after getting some samples. So that's what it looks like. I got a yard of it, should be plenty. I've got that. I'm going to cut my material out first, and then I'm going to kind of do some dry fitting and make sure the pieces aren't totally out of whack, and then I'm going to fire up the sewing machine, and we're going to try to get this into some kind of shape. I got my thread there. I got a couple different kinds of thread I'm going to maybe try. So that's that for now. I'll try to pick this back up when I have a little bit more done to show you guys. Okay guys, I skipped a step here. I got a little excited and decided to get to sewing. So once you cut out your patterns, you want to transfer your lines obviously to the back side here. I will be using a wax marker to kind of transfer some of these lines from here to the front side so that I can match it up with my pod. But so yeah, you basically, and one trick I learned was to use staples to hold everything together, better than pins, because pins are just a real pain. But you just go ahead and staple away, and you can sew right over the staples or sew around them. The sewing machine doesn't care. So you'll see I got my basic thing done here. I'm not real happy with how it lined up on the back side, especially in the corners. I don't know what I'm doing, so didn't really work so good there. But I'm gonna I'm gonna go ahead and lay the seams over. I'll pull all of the staples out, and I'll use some weldwood, DAP weldwood contact cement. I'll paint both the flap and on the other side, let it dry, fold it over, hammer it flat. I'll get that done, and then I will unfold this thing inside out, and I'll stick it on the pod and see what we get. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I've got plenty of material if I screwed up to fix this. So it doesn't look terrible so far. We'll see what happens. Okay, after you get done sewing and you glue your flaps over, I use a hammer these suckers down. They'll get nice and flat, and it'll get rid of some of the bulk that you have when you fold edges like that. So you see my basic shape here. I got a couple weird things happening that I'll probably just trim up. Like this area here, I didn't really glue because it's actually under the thing, under the this. So what I'm going to do is just kind of test fit it, and then I'll just probably trim some of this away so that it matches up. This little part here will kind of match up underneath. So I'll probably end up trimming that. But I kind of stuck this in. Forgive me here. I should have set up a tripod, but I didn't. I don't know how many people are actually interested in this, so I'm just kind of winging it. I got it. You know, I stuck it in there, and at first fitting, it's a little loose, but I also have to pull it. I have to pull it. All of this. First of all, it has to be like, you know, shoved up in there, and then all of this material, you know, gets pulled up, you know, pulled over, pull it over, this pulled over. It all gets nice and tight, and then the whole thing gets glued with that cement, and that stuff sticks really, really good when you let it set up. Like, here's a little test piece I did. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. I'm pulling on that pretty darn hard. So what you do is, you know, you put a little glue on at a time, and so I'll probably put like glue probably down the center. I'll probably kind of go like this all the way down, and then what I'll do is I'll use my marks and I'll line it up. I'll get that stuck down, and once that's stuck down, I can actually pull against that anchor, almost like tinting windows. When you do the H pattern, when you tint windows, you get yourself an anchor point, and then you can kind of pull and shift and tug. Again, there's a couple little oddities, but you know what? I don't mind. I think it's still going to look awesome. So I'm probably going to try to do this and see what happens. I'll show you how it comes out. This isn't going to be a very good "this is how you upholster" video. There's actually a bunch of other YouTube channels that show you how to upholster. This is more of a documentation of what I'm doing. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll actually probably put a link to somebody's channel that was a big help. I'm not exactly sure how to say his channel name. Starts with a C. He does a lot of interior upholstery work, and his videos were super big help and an inspiration to trying to tackle stuff like this. So anyway, I'm gonna get to it, and we'll see how it turns out. Just a little progress report. I've started gluing. I glued the front first, and it's turning out not bad. I guess I made the front panel a little too wide, but we'll see how it looks. Over here, you can see my seam like wraps around the side a little too much, but I think it's going to be okay. I'll just kind of, you know, pull things around and try to get it to look all right. I've just been kind of gluing in sections, so this is my next section here, and I've just kind of been rolling that sucker over. Fits pretty tight. When I get down to here, I have to be careful that I really start yanking on the fabric, on the material, to conform to the shapes that I you know, put into the sides. I mean, there's some lines there, and I have to get that wrapped around. Same when I get to the back here. When I get to the back, I have a curve to work with, and then also have to go around these corners. Now, these corners are hidden. I mean, they tuck into that dash piece. They tuck into the back of the dash piece there. So all I really have to do is get the material just tug it down a little bit, and then glue it. And I think I'm also going to put some staples underneath. I have a air stapler, and I'm just going to put some staples. I made a hole in this panel. This is a spare one that I got for super cheap off a guy that was parting one out. Made a much smaller hole than the first time because I am going to pass a smaller wire through. And I ended up putting countersunk bolts, flat, you know, not countersunk. I did countersink them, but they're flat, like machine screws in there. A little lock washer and a bolt. And then my plan is, with the wire, when I stick the plug into the back there, I'm just going to run a zip tie between the two of those, and that should be enough to hold that in. Just has to hold it from vibrating out. So we're making good progress. Problem with this stuff is, I mean, this stuff is amazing. The problem with it is you got to let it dry. Like, you have to let it dry up. And you know, you shouldn't be able to feel it on your fingers, which I'm getting close here, but just kind of, I don't have the patience. So it takes a little bit of time. It's still wet over there, so I gotta wait another 5 minutes or so. But that's where we're at. We're getting close. Well, this is what we wound up with. I messed up a couple spots, and some of it came out not how I wanted. You can see the you know, the folds from where I did my you know, my flaps there. But, you know, fit, as far as the fitment in this thing goes, I think I nailed it. Curve matched. You can see a little bit of sin down there, but you know what, that's going to be in the back, and I could probably still sort that out a little bit. This is the bottom. I was able to keep it fairly clean. I know the light down here is terrible, I'm sorry. I did run some staples along there, along the insides, but for all intents and purposes, this thing looks pretty darn good. I have a little bit of a faux pas here, and I can tell you exactly what happened. And this could be a warning to everyone else. When you're tracing your patterns, when you first make this pattern out of paper, the one that you tape on, you then trace this onto the, you know, cardboard using a pen. So, you know, you trace one thing, you have that line. Now that line is actually outside of your edge of your first pattern. So then you take your cardboard pattern and then you trace that onto your material, and now that's the edge of the cardboard pattern, and now you've traced a line on the outside of that. And when you're cutting with your scissors, if you cut right on that line, you're going to wind up with more material. It just kind of stacks up. Eventually you wind up with an excess of material there if you make a certain amount of patterns. So that's what happened. This ended up being just a little bit too long, a little too wide. So a little bit of a goof there. But you know what? Once I put the hole in this thing and I got the faceplate sitting in there, it's gonna look so good that I'll forgive myself. And honestly, most people probably won't notice. So that's that. I have to cut this out. That's a whole trick in itself. But yeah, looking pretty good so far. Let me know what you think. Hey, I know I'm leaving a lot of stuff out, but I really don't remember where I left off last night. Maybe it was the glue fumes. Apparently they're still getting to me. I'm pretty much done with this. I'm actually pretty happy with how it came out, despite the fact that you can see some of the flaps. You know, you can see them, but whatever. It's a custom piece. It's going to happen. That's a little messed up. But I didn't lose the overall idea. So you can see I cut my opening. After doing numerous test pieces, this is the best way I found to do it. What I basically did was make that horizontal slit, and I only went over as far as, so I just put some glue on this. I only went over as far as I would have to have enough material to wrap completely around. Now, I don't need the material to go all the way across the 3/4 inch piece down there. I only need it to go about halfway. So I made sure I gave myself enough so that I can have enough material to pull and yank and glue down, and then after I glue it down and secure my corners, I'm going to come in here with a razor and kind of slit, make nice straight lines, and clean that up. Then I make these little angled cuts towards the corner, and what that does is I just kind of sneak up on the corner. I'll take a little nips at it until I can press, like right now, without pressing too hard, I can press that up into the corner. So with the procedure that I'm going to use for this, and I don't want to pull too hard either because I want my line to stay pretty straight. If you yank on this too much, it could start to pull that. The procedure I'm going to use is I'm going to tack. I have some glue on here now, just tacking up. I'm going to tack the centers down. I'm going to use my heat gun, apply a little bit of heat in the areas that I want it to go. I'm going to then apply glue. I'm going to add the heat, and I'm going to kind of pre-stretch it a little bit more. You can see I've already done that. I'm going to add some glue, then I'm finally going to heat it up one last time, and I'm basically just going to try to work the material this way into the corner, work it that way into the corner while sticking it all down. What that's going to do is probably stick, and then if I were to leave it sit or put it on the dash itself, the corners will start to lift. So before that happens, I'm going to take some of these little wire nails, little tacks basically. I'm going to drive them into the corners, and then I'm going to use a nail set, which is this sucker here, to just give them a little love tap. And what'll happen is it'll sink down into this. It'll kind of sink down into the material a little bit, and you'll never see it. And honestly, if you can see it, I'll get a little bit of tan paint or beige paint and just dab them, but you'll never see it. Like I said, my test piece over here has nails in the corner, and you really can't. Man, the screen keeps going off. You really can't tell unless you look. You know, there it is. But look how you have to look at an angle. There's going to be a faceplate sticking in there, so you won't be able to see it. So that's where we're at. As soon as this tacks up, I'll start messing with that, and then hopefully we'll have a finished project tonight because I really want to install that mess. It's all in a box there. Sick of my dash being apart. So I'm hoping to get this finished up, and then tomorrow at lunchtime at work, I'm probably going to install. So I'm going to try to get some video of the install, take a tripod with me or something, and try to set it up in the car so you can at least get a feel for how it goes together. But we'll see how this works first. Well, there she is. Darn if she ain't. Kind of annoyed that you can see that much of the seam, but don't care. I don't care. Sits in there nice, pretty close. A little bit of extra material on the bottom, but won't ever hurt anything. Got my hole cut. I'm very happy with how the hole came out. You can see the nails there, but you cannot see them when the faceplate's in. There's the underside. Still have a little bit of trimming off to do to get it to sit in there, but it does not move. So the faceplate, let me make sure I'm doing this right. Faceplate fits in there just absolutely perfectly. The little trim ring or whatever you want to call it, the faceplate the faceplate actually snaps to, is a very snug fit. You kind of squeeze it in there and then it stays. But I'm going to glue it once I'm satisfied. So that's the finished look. Clean. Check it out. So you can kind of see a little bit of wood right there. You can see some there. You might be able to see some actually can't really see some there. So I don't know what I'm going to do about that, if anything. I might just take a little strip of leftover material and glue it in there. Might do that. Don't know. Might just leave it the heck alone. Like I said, I don't know. Actually, it's going to be up here. It's going to sit like that, so you're not going to see it. I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to leave it alone. I'm not going to touch it. So I got my box loaded up. Tomorrow, I figured the best way to do it would be to mount you on my head, and we'll see what kind of video we get of me installing this mess into the Explorer. And you know, it might not be helpful to anybody, because somebody would literally have to do exactly what I did. But if you have one of these, you know, 06 to 2010 Explorers, or any Ford that uses the same kit that I used, you can certainly install it similar. Actually, I have the kit right here. You can see what it works with, maybe. Here's the kit. It's a Scotch FD3090. Ford 95 and up. Ford, Lincoln, Mercury, Mazda. And I mean, there's a long list of stuff here that this can go into. So, you know, if you want to do a Nexus 7, 2012, maybe you can do 2013, I don't know, possibly. If you want to do it, it can be done without much trouble. Just a little, you have to be willing to cut this up a little bit. And, you know, you didn't have to do this. You could have run everything off the tablet. I didn't want to do that just because of the fact that I like having very simple radio controls. And I like, you can't really do anything Bluetooth with the tablet. So I'm going to just run the Bluetooth off of this, which is another thing I have to figure out, how to run my microphone. I have to make sure I do that before I'm all done. Who am I kidding? I'm going to be tearing this back out to do something to it. So, but for now, that's it. Like I said, tomorrow I'll try to get some footage of installation, and I don't know when you guys are going to see these videos. Probably not for a while. By the time I get them cut up and edited and post some of the other stuff that's waiting in the wings, but you'll see it soon, and hopefully it helps somebody out. Thanks for watching.